Iwapo Kagwe ataidhinishwa kama waziri wa kilimo na kamati hiyo, basi atakuwa waziri wa tatu wa kilimo chini ya serikali ya Kenya Kwanza. Katika kikao hicho cha uteuzi mbele ya kamati ya uteuzi ya bunge la kitaifa, waziri mteule wa kilimo Mutahi Kagwe alifichua kuwa thamani ya mali zake ni takriban shilingi milioni 842. Kagwe alieleza kuwa mali zake zinajumuisha mali za aina mbalimbali kama ardhi na mali alizokusanya kwa miaka mingi.
Remember, Mr. Chairman, going to Aga Khan Hospital, going to Nairobi Hospital, everybody was desperate and the prices were crazy all over the town. It wasn't that the Ministry of Health was buying those items at a higher price than the rest of the world or the rest of the country. We were buying it at the market prices at that time. And this is something that I have explained, at length. Mr. Chairman, the handling of COVID-19 at that time was such a nightmare. It was such a nightmare that the cost to people, the cost of lives, every day we would wake up to be told that 10,000 people are being buried in New York. The Italian government has given up and surrendered, that everybody is dying. In South America, people are being dragged out of houses and being burnt outside, they are cremated outside their own houses. So it wasn't a time that people were making very, very rational decisions. It was a desperate period, but we did what we had to do. And Kenya, by the way, is one of the countries that got praised because of the work that they did. And Mr. Chairman, I will say this. I am prepared to do, I take responsibility, and I did, and I said everything that happened that was not correct in my ministry. And throughout that COVID period, we must take responsibility because it was there. The negatives, I take responsibility. The positives, I give credit to the team that was working at the ministry. This is a vaccine. It is being made by Kevavapi, who are our own people. It is for this and this purpose. We only vaccinate about 10% of our livestock. We want to vaccinate more than that. But the point of the matter is this. The cow, as I said earlier, belongs to an individual. It doesn't belong to the government. The goat belongs to an individual, not to the government. So the matter is simple. Here is a vaccine. It is for foot and mouth disease. You have a goat. Do you want the goat to be vaccinated? You say, yes, I want to be vaccinated. We vaccinate. You say, no, I don't want my goat to be vaccinated. Sawa. Do you have a cow? Do you want the cow to be vaccinated? This is the reason why it is to be vaccinated. You say yes, we vaccinate. You say no, we don't vaccinate. Hala?
Thank you.
Na mtazamaji, naarifu hivi sasa tuelekee moja kwa moja hadi katika majengo ya City Hall ambako usaili au zoezi la kupiga misasa mawaziri wateule inayezidi kuendelea, na anayepigwa msasa hivi sasa, anayesailiwa hivi sasa ni aliyekuwa gavana wa kaunti ya Kiambu mnamo mwaka 2013 hadi 2017 William Kabogo, ambaye ameteuliwa naye Rais William Ruto kuchukua nyadhifa za uongozi kwenye wizara ya mawasiliano, ukipenda kwa lugha ya kimombo ICT, na tufahamu kuwa Kabogo atakuwa anachukua nafasi yake Margaret Ndung'u aliyeteuliwa kwenye nafasi ya baraza la kuwakilisha Kenya kwenye sekta ya ubalozi huko taifa la Ghana, lakini akataa nafasi hiyo. Hebu tusikize yanayojiri kwenye majengo ya City Hall.
Aware of that, if you're not what you will find, would you then want to change what has already been circulated as a draft, or how will you enrich it? You have said you will get bored very easily. That's why you left the job you were doing. I hope the job you're now looking for, the right now, which we are vetting you for, you won't get bored so fastly. The last one is regarding KBC and Communications Authority and Helios. Helios, the one which was buying telecom. Helio, I am corrected. If I don't know how you have communicated with CAK, there is a debt which CAK has got of KBC, which has not paid about 6 billion shillings. How are you going to tackle that? And how are you going to tackle the retirees of KBC who are not getting their pensions and the lump sums from the year 2021? Thank you, Chair.
Ferdinand,
Chairman.
may I switch on off your mic?
I think traveling around and interacting with the people from this region, the East African countries actually are looking at Kenya as a more developed, because I've been to Tanzania, Uganda, and even Southern Sudan. And I've realized that the whole Kenya to be more developed in terms of the ICT facilitation. And I just want to see, because of they can, instead of people traveling, what have you, how are you going to improve, how are you going to coordinate this infrastructure with the other countries? If we met you, the Minister for Communication. Secondly, I think what we are seeing around is a lot of indiscipline among our youths. And you are trying to explain, but the youths needs a program, a specific program to be able to discipline them going forward. If we leave them the way they are, this country is going to be thrown to the dogs. So what programs will you come with? Being, of course, you are saying you know this discipline. What are you going to come up with a program to be able to discipline our children so that going forward there's discipline in the area, particularly in your country? Thank you.
Last on this batch, Morugara.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nominee, just put a star against KBC because we are not very good at keeping our national heritage. I mean, the successor in title, KBC, took over from VOK. And VOK was quite developed those days when we used to have it as our main station. Today it's a pale shandal. And we are worried that other entities in other countries, which are possibly national broadcasting corporations, like BBC, South African Broadcasting Corporation, have been able to peak, but KBC is going down. What measures are you going to put in place to transform KBC so that from your tenure, the time you take it up, if you're approved, we now start seeing KBC coming up to a point that it will become a competitor of BBC, South African Broadcasting Corporation, Voice of America, and everybody else. Secondly, a while ago, a very noble idea was introduced, which was to digitally register Kenyans through a number called Huduma number. We were given a very good story of what it was going to be, that you will get your number for those who are being born from birth, and you would carry it to the grave, such that it would not be replicated, and we would always be able to tell who that person is. That was from the office of the president, but principally it should have been from the Minister of ICT. Is it a good idea to have Kenyans registered under one card, under one number, like the Huduma number, which is going to be your everything? And if it is in your favor, how would you protect that under the Data Protection Act? Thank you.
Nominee, you can answer those four.
Mr. Speaker, the first one was from
Honorable
Mary.
Msasa. Yes.
Is that so? Mr. Speaker, the issue of 2011 of Mercy Kaino, a very tragic story, Mr. Speaker. The honorable member has said it is alleged that I had invited people to a party. Mr. Speaker, that is not true. This is just a situation where you find yourself at a place at the wrong time. It was a public place, a restaurant, and there were several groups of people in that place, Mr. Speaker. And the issue of the death of Mercy Kaino came to me 2 weeks after she had been buried. And even if I had met her the following day after that hotel or restaurant, I would never have noticed her. It is a sad story, and Kenyan life was lost, but I sincerely and truly had nothing to do with it. Suffice to say, Mr. Speaker, an inquiry, I think it was inquiry 22 of, I think 2012, was done at Milimani Magistrates Court. And all persons of interest.
An inquiry or an inquest?
An inquest, sorry.
Yes.
I am not a lawyer like yourself, Mr. Speaker, so some of these terms.
The two are different.
Yes. So it was done, and it took about a year and a half, and all persons of interest were invited, even those that had not been there.
Including yourself?
Including myself. I was governor, but I managed to be able to sit in there for 6 days. Cross-examination, examination in chief, etc. And I was exonerated by the judgment of that court, a court that made a finding that the late Masekino was a victim of a hit and run by a truck. And that matter rests there. It is a sad story. There were videos played of the scene in the restaurant. And when I was speaking to the father of Masekino at the inquest, I was urging him really not to watch those videos, because they were videos that were not very nice for a parent. I sympathize with the family of Masekino. May her soul rest in peace. But I am certain that as a child, and a God-fearing child, I believe that one day the truck driver or whoever it is that was in the truck that killed Masekino will be able to come out and say, unfortunately, I kept quiet, but I did it. And I hope that day will come. I have a copy of the inquiry report with me if anyone would be interested to have a look at. It's a public document. Honorable Dawood, I am not aware of the 2025 bill, but he asked me what I would do if it's there, whether I would reverse. I would have to probably study it closely with the technocrats in the ministry and understand what has informed the bill, what it wants to cure, and look at it with those that are technocrats in different divisions in the ministry to make sure that we bring to law a useful legislature that will help. I'm not sure whether I understood your
It's a strategy draft, not a bill.
Right, so I'm well advised. So that's what we will do. Look at it and go through it with those that have proposed that draft. Holography it's a welcome idea. It's of today's world. That's what is happening. So it's something we could embrace. But again, with AI, we have to be careful about what is disseminated, because through AI, many things are happening today. I was asked to, KBC, the Horace loan, and what we would do with Kenya Broadcasting Corporation as an icon, a historical sort of thing for Kenya from VOK. In my mind, Mr. Speaker, KBC needs a total overhaul. It needs to be reassessed how it's operating, so that if you look at BBC and other, Al Jazeera and others, they have a contribution from state that funds public broadcasting, so that KBC may have a wing of public broadcasting and the commercial division that takes care of its commercial entity. I've talked to a couple of people and they say KBC has got a lot of land. They could sell their land and revamp KBC financially. From the school of thought, Mr. Speaker, When you sell the first parcel and sort out the employees' emoluments and pension and statutory deductions that have not been paid, and probably buy a few cameras and things like that, they go back to the same hole a year later. They will pick the next plots and sell until the 8th one is sold and they have no plot to sell. We should be able to go in and reassess the viability of KBC as it stands. I have come across during briefing something that says they want to borrow from, I think it's Spain, a tune of 12 billion to revamp KBC by buying new equipment, broadcasting equipment, etc., etc. And that, to me, sounded very worrying. Because you will look at other broadcasting stations like, for lack of a better example, like Citizen. And if you assess the sort of money they have used to make their broadcasting stations what it is, 12 billion is completely exaggerated. I should be able to go in there, send out a team to the world online, and find out what sort of equipment KBC requires and how it needs to be brought back into a world-class broadcasting station. If you put your TV on this evening, Mr. Speaker, and you put KBC, and there are young men and women in that house, you will almost get a bashing. What are you doing in that station? I want to be the one who sorts KBC. If you put it in your house, people will want to watch because it's got the right content in terms of broadcasting, entertainment, and things like that. You'll find a radio station from KBC. If you drive up the mountains, any part of Kenya, you will keep losing the wave because they say the equipments are obsolete. There is also a situation in the world that is happening now, Mr. Speaker, where you don't have to buy equipment. You can lease equipment. And the lessor of equipment is responsible for managing and keeping the equipment running. And if it fails, they bring in new equipment. That may be cheaper. Because if you buy equipment today and they say the life of equipment is about 5 years, so does it mean KBC should spend another 12 billion shillings in reorganizing KBC? I believe it can be a world-class broadcasting station with support from government for public broadcasting in public interest. But the other division that is commercial should be able to sustain itself. And that is something that I think we can do fairly quickly as a quick win. You talk of a debt. As I was receiving briefs, Mr. Speaker, there is debt to Telecom, debt from so-and-so, debt owed to CA. There's so much cross-debt in government sagas that some people say we will not pay because we are owed. You find a place like Telecom, when it comes to paying, they say it will affect public in this way or the other. But when it comes to their own dues of paying, they say they are private. So these are some of the things that we need to be able to deal with so that Caesar is given what is Caesar's. There's a lot of money out there owned across these agencies. And probably we need also to find whether we can legislate on how debt across government agencies can be controlled, like in any business. Mr. Speaker, we are talking about debt owed from one agency to another. Through this ministry, if I'm confirmed, Mr. Speaker, we should be able to digitize entire government business so that information is available. Even the issue that is very dear to the public in general in terms of pending bills is a very big issue in the country on pending bills. And you realize, Mr. Speaker, that Kenyans don't look at pending bills as a very serious concern because, in my mind, pending bills, Mr. Speaker, is money borrowed from public. When a governor takes roads and gives contract of roads to Kenyans, for example, and he has not budgeted how those roads will be paid. A commitment is done, and a Kenyan entrepreneur will put in their money and do the roads and never get paid. So there's a lot of borrowing. You will find this to the tune, I think, of 150 billion owed to Kenyans by government agencies. So this is something that we need to deal with as a country. But if we have a system, like what I would want to propose, if we have a system that captures procurement and payments, at the same time, the controller of budget will be able to see in real time and to stop some of these things. But because we wait for a year or 18 months until the audit reports come to the House for people to be invited here for questions, we should be able to digitize government business so that information is available to everyone and sundry for action to be taken to stop some of these things. So I imagine at some point in 2 years, Mr. Speaker, if I'm confirmed, the Speaker of the National Assembly should be able to see exactly what the MPs are doing wherever it is they are on legislative business. The President of the Republic from one dashboard should be able to see what is happening in development programs in Kenya. As we did in Kiambu, I could tell that from my office, what is happening in every ministry, 10 ministries in Kiambu, and would make decisions on time. There would be a management information system that gives an amber light when you open your document, and it tells you here something is about to go wrong. Red means it's chaotic, everything is bad. And information available in real time should be able to take us to the next frontier.
Yes, Owen. Ferdinand, oh yeah.
Did I answer?
No, you didn't touch on Ferdinand's question.
Ferdinand is East African, first and foremost. It is said Kenya is the Silicon Savannah of Africa. It is top #1 in Africa in terms of ICT and digital economy. But that does not put us in the first world. So it's a lot that needs to be done in terms of fast connectivity, so that we have high-speed internet in the whole country, ICT skills in terms of equipping the young with skills to be able to use these platforms. But again, our landlocked country neighbors should be able to use our infrastructure to get internet to Uganda, to Rwanda, and those other places. If only the bureaucracy between governments is sorted, so that we can take advantage of the position that we occupy in terms of ICT and digital economy in Africa. So we stand quite up there, but that we could take advantage.
Owen Bayer. Huduma number, yes. What happened to Huduma number?
Yes. One thing, Mr. Speaker, there's a lot of skepticism in the public about their information. Always people thinking government wants their information to give to KRA, government wants their information to do this. And we have to continue engaging ourselves as a public on why isn't it necessary to have information of Kenyan people in one database. For as long as that information is safe in the hands of government, it is important that government if you walk into Dubai now and you give in your passport, if you've ever been there before or anything, they have got your stuff there. If you are exiting Dubai, they tell you to look at the screen and you're taking your identity. The time you're kicked out of Dubai, you will never go back to Dubai again because your information is right there. So I think myself it's a myth that we need to deal with in terms of educating ourselves and having this open dialogue that government is not always bad. Because, you know, that is a sort of general feeling I have now. But it's working, it's something we can work on. So I believe it's important for any state to be able to know its citizenry right from birth all the way to the death certificate. So I have nothing against Huduma number myself, but we need to go in there and find out, are there other things that are being done that look like Huduma number? Because every other time this is changing, that is changing. I believe we can have one document that suffices for all services, and avoid spending public money on some of these things.
Owen Bayer,
Thank you. This is the fourth time
take the next round.
The fourth time you're calling my question now.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would like to ask the nominee this question that touches on collective responsibility as a binding note for Cabinet. You're aware recent events have shown that a CS could actually call a press conference to complain about and seek questions for a government he serves in based on a personal issue or personal matter. And if you are given an opportunity, Honorable Kabogo, how would you handle this issue of collective responsibility? And that would you have the discipline to really stay in government and say this collective responsibility, or will you just, as a politician, you know you're a politician, go the political way and seek public sympathy, or would you handle it differently? Secondly, Honorable Speaker, our question on expired data. You know, when you buy data, you don't use it, it expires. And I see on my phone a lot of data that is I can't use. You know, a lot of it I can't use because it's expired, but it is there. But when it comes to consumer protection, why would I be forced to use data when I don't want to use it? It's my property, I bought it. Why would a telco want really to control how I use it? And how are you going to bring in policy and regulations on the same to ensure that Kenyans are not robbed by telcos in terms of expired data? I think there are millions of expired data out there. And Kenya are suffering. They have it, they can't use it because somebody decided they can't use it. You know, and lastly, Konza Metropolis was a great idea. We see it when we pass going to Mombasa and we see the development that is there. But the idea behind the Konza Metropolis is that we're going to have cutting-edge technology coming out of it. Cutting-edge technology, that we are Silicon Savannah. And that was the base for the Silicon Savannah, that we would see a lot of things, apps and all that coming out. But what we see a lot is buildings. We see they come out to install internet, simple things that would have been done from Nairobi. But we have a whole lot of a metropolis, and we would like to see it work. If appointed as a Cabinet Secretary for ICT, what would you do different to ensure that the Silicon Savannah that President Kibaki envisaged then and the Konza Metropolis would come to fruition as soonest for Kenyans, for the many young people who are looking for jobs and getting disturbed on the internet and, you know, on phone? They would be there producing high-end technology, but now they're not there because we haven't actualized what President Kibaki wanted us to have. I thank you.
Robert Bui.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, you know, recently we had an international company that was also taking advantage, like these other big techs, and mining, data mining. You know, we found queues at KICC of young people lining up to have their irises, I think, copied. And it took the intervention of the National Assembly, actually, to stop that. So what will you do to ensure that this kind of thing doesn't happen again? Now, there's also the issue of pending bills that are owed to media houses by the government. And, of course, that has led to some of these media houses closing. And, you know, journalists being owed a lot of money. What will you do to ensure that they are back in business? And finally, what do you want to tell those young Kenyans on social media, because this ministry is responsible for social media, and who are actually out there saying that they believe this position should have been given to a very young techno-savvy youth in furtherance of the Article 10 of the Constitution, which is principles of good governance. Thank you, Speaker.
Let's take one more. In fact, two more. Mule.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Kabogo, if you are approved by this House, and I heard you speak about Starlink, owned by the billionaire Enoch Marx from the US, what will you do to make sure that you protect the investment done by Kenyan companies like Safaricom, Telecom, and any other investment which has been done in the country to make sure that Starlink does not come here and kill Safaricom overnight? You know the number of people working for Safaricom. The revenue collected by government from Safaricom is the highest. If we allow this under your watch, I think the Gen Zs will not let you smile. So we want to hear your views on that, because it's a connectivity issue and investment by Kenyan taxpayers' money in this country, and you must protect it. We need to hear that. Secondly, Vision 2030, which has emphasized a lot on development on knowledge-based economy, highlighting the importance of ICT in this country through education, to enhance productivity and efficiency, is key. And you are getting into this ministry whereby we have only 5 years to actualize the Vision 2030. That's 5 years to go. And we still have the Concert City, which is supposed to, and it was one of the flagship of this, to make sure that digitization and ICT integration in the schools is well implemented. What will you do in the ministry to fast track this and probably leave a clear legacy to make sure that the vision for Honorable the late Mwai Kibaki of Vision 2030 is achieved?
Thank you. Raso, I'll jump you to Shuria. He says he wants to ask a question and shortly leave for a meeting. Shuria? You are going together?
They are fasting.
No, it had nothing to do with religion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mheshimiwa Kabogo, there was a recent public notice issued by the Communication Authority on tax compliance for mobile devices in Kenya, which has raised concerns among consumers and stakeholders regarding its implementation. To your knowledge, what is the intention of this notice and its relation to the government agenda on telecommunication security?
Thank you. So, Raso, if you are going together, then I'll give you the opportunity.
Mr. Speaker, he seems not to have gotten the question. He wants me to repeat it, is it? Okay.
Through the chair.
Through the chair, okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There was a recent public notice issued by the Communication Authority on tax compliance for mobile devices in Kenya, which had raised concerns among consumers and stakeholders. To your knowledge, what is the intention of this notice and its relation to government agenda and telecommunication security? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Okay, Raso. Honorable Raso.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I walked in late. My name is Dido Raso, MP for Saku. Honorable Kabogo, if the House approves your nomination, your ministry will be mouthful: information, communication, and the digital economy. The world has moved there. Actually, you will be sitting at the center of the world. The problem in Kenya today is about cyber security, about cyber bullying, and cyber attacks, and cyber crime. Currently, we have 20,000 services on eCitizen. If those sites actually are attacked, it means Kenya will be closed for a minute, for a day, even for a month. If you'll be given this position, there's the balance between securing Kenya, but also opening the digital economy for business. How have you placed yourself that Kenya runs, but at the same time, Kenya is secure? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
You can respond to those four.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
The first one was from, I think, Honorable Baya, about collective responsibility. That is the issue, the whole world, where collective responsibility is supposed to be. Excuse me, Mr. Speaker. And you talked about a recent situation where a minister of government came out and broadcasted dissent or his dissatisfaction on the issue of abductions. And I simply, from where I sit, and you said I'm a politician, I'm more a leader than a politician, because the politician thinks about the next election and the leader thinks about the next generation. So I belong to that other side. But from where I sit, that was very irresponsible of the Honorable J.B. Muturi, if I may say so, Speaker, without saying more. If I was, or I were, on his position, or in his position, I would have taken my dissent to the appointing authority. And if I was afraid of facing the appointing authority, I would go to cabinet and air it there. And if I'm not satisfied, tender my resignation. I resign because I don't believe in what the government is doing in terms of abductions. But politicians, that's what they do. I hope I have answered you. Then there was a question of expired data. Mr. Speaker, I personally have been a victim of buying data. And the next week or so, I was told my data had expired. And if you go to my Twitter handle, I did express my concerns to Safaricom. And I said we should stop now using Safaricom. At that point in time, that was my belief. And I explained that you cannot go to a shop, Mr. Speaker, and buy sugar, and then come to my house and tell me how not to use or how to use that sugar. And I think I want to inform the member, since then, I really had a back and forth with Safaricom. Now they give you an option of buying, I'm not speaking for Safaricom, but they have an option of you buying data without expiry or data with expiry. So ujitume, ununue, whatever it is that you feel is good for you. But that is, it was very disappointing for me that day, and I believe for most Kenyans.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Owen?
I mean, I think we need a policy, because if you make expirable data more expensive and data that does not expire cheaper, then what you're doing is you're robbing citizens. So I think we need a policy to stop this daylight theft, because there's something called consumer protection in this country. And I think the Minister of ICT owes this country a duty of care to protect consumers of data, to just have non-expirable data. Thank you.
So, Mr. Speaker, I agree entirely with the member. And if I'm confirmed, I'll fix it. I'll fix it.
Go ahead, Robert Mbuis.
Mr. Speaker, you realize that this was a dream 16 years ago. And things were different 16 years ago. And from where I sit, if I'm confirmed and going, we shall put the issue of Konza City on the table and reevaluate whether the original dream still stands and what it is we need to do with the very huge investments that have been put in Konza. And as a businessman, I have asked myself time and again, why haven't I ever thought of going to Konza and invest there as an astute Kenyan businessman? And in my mind, Mr. Speaker, is that there is nothing attractive from the businessman point of view, because I've seen others come up in Dubai. I have invested there. I've seen others in other places of the world. So really, Mr. Speaker, we need to reevaluate the concept of Konza City. A lot of money has been put in Konza on infrastructure. Phase 1, almost 95% complete. But my question is, what is it we need to do to make Kenyans themselves and foreign investors be attracted to have an incentive scheme that sends people and international investors into Konza, like tax holiday, duty-free status, land available at almost zero rate, so that they can put huge investments, is to create investors and buy tokens for Konza so that it can build itself. But always when it's a government project, people tend to want to go slow on again, bureaucracy, again, the way decisions are made. I have had a little bit of a briefing on Konza, and there are many things that we will put on the table and see whether we still have to do business that way. I'm told Konza city is building hubs. The 1450 or the first 100 hectare, which is the authority responsible with connectivity, will do internet. Konza will do the structure, and hectare will connect, from what I understand, and then probably give an ISP to run. Is it really the right thing? Is it really the right thing to do for Konza, to build these hubs or concentrate on the core mandate of Konza? This is questions, our mandate of Konza. This is questions I will need to ask until I'm convinced that that is the way to do this business. So there's a lot that will be on the table of the ICT minister in us, and that's the way the world is going today. Why don't we have the Elon Musks of this world investing in Konza City? Do we risk losing the total amount of money that has been invested in Konza? Then there is land being given for has been going on. What is the criteria? Are these people going to invest, or they are people who speculate? These are things that the ministry needs to look into and reorganize Konza the year today and not 16 years ago. That's from an outsider. From an outsider's point of view. Data mining.
You're not paying attention?
Sure. Second?
You are not sure who asked?
I'm not sure. I didn't get the name. That's why I'm saying.
Robert
I know it is a member sitting just there. So sorry, I did not get your name. But be that as it may.
Does that tell a story about you? All these members introduce themselves to you.
Mr. Speaker, sometimes you do not hear the pronunciation of the name, so I do not want to take the risk of calling someone in a name that is not their name.
And the name tags are also there.
Unfortunately,
he is Honorable Robert Mbui. Go ahead and answer his question.
I am physically challenged from seeing far. Honorable Mbui, you will excuse me. It needs to be regulated. What sort of data is going into whose hands? You did give an example of a company that was collecting, I think, data from Kenyans, and they were paying. So government should be able to regulate who is it that is collecting data from Kenyans. And I think that's not a big deal to do. We should be able to quickly.
In fact, should we allow any foreigner to come and mine our data?
In my mind, we should not, unless it is done through a government agency. And for what reason, Mr. Speaker, we would want to give data of Kenyans to foreigners? For me, that is a straight no. But you find that Kenyans are very enterprising, Mr. Speaker. When the rumor was that you get 10,000 shillings after you register, sometimes Kenyans don't give a damn of some of those things, as long as there is some enterprise happening. So we should be able to engage people and them understand that it is wrong for them to give data to anyone. So I want to tell Kenyans to be careful on who you allow to take information from yourself. But if we have rules and regulations on how this thing is done, it can be controlled. Now, Mr. Speaker, I think it's Honorable Mule. I got...
Yes, Robert?
You haven't finished my questions on pending bills and what Kenyans on social media are saying. about this docket?
I didn't get the question on pending bills, what it was.
Yeah, it was about pending bills that the government owes to media houses that have led to some of them collapsing and journalists not being paid so much money. So what will you do when you get into office? And the other one was what Kenyans are saying on social media. They're saying that this docket should have been given to a young, techno-savvy youth in furtherance of Article 10 of the Constitution. So what do you have to say about that?
Let me deal with the first one because it's fairly easy. The issue of pending bills, Mr. Speaker, I had addressed the issue of pending bills to Kenyans, not now media owners, Kenyans themselves who've built roads, who've built hospitals, and their money is held by government. I'm saying we must have a way of controlling pending bills. And if we digitize government procurement, media houses procurement, no one will go and spend money they cannot pay. And I gave an example of a governor who walks into office, like I left office, somebody else walked in, and quickly they want to commit money for roads, for either one reason to build roads or another reason. And Kenyans quickly run and put their money into those programs or projects, and to wait for many years not to be paid. There must be a way we can legislate on the issue of committing funds that you do not have. But if I am confirmed.
Well, there is already a legislation. The PFM Act says it's a criminal offense to procure goods or services in a public entity without an attendant budget.
I am guided, Mr. Speaker, but you will see pending bills of some counties. For example, not even media houses. A county has a pending bill list of 7 billion, but their budget for development for 1 year is 1.1 billion. So really out there are many criminals that need to be brought to book. Very many criminals. Again, the laws are made here. Sometimes they are not enforced, like you are talking of the misuse of computer and cyberbullying and all those things. The law is there. It's just the enforcement. Suffice to say, there is now a new app.
Mr. Speaker, I wanted to clarify that some of the pending bills, the Honorable Nominee, it's not necessarily that there was no budget that was there. There was budget and government procured the services, but there was no exchequer when the service was done. There was no money. You know, government, a budget is a document of intent. So they go and collect money. If they don't collect enough money, then they have no money to pay. That is the way it is most of the time. And if you can pay, if you can deal with the pending bill in your ministry in the manner that you understand, the better for the government. Sure.
Mr. Speaker, if you allow me to school my friend Honorable Junet a little bit on the issue of pending bills, is that the money was not there then. But if you look at it aggregately, the total is that if you have closed your books of the year and you have 7 billion spending bills, and the following year it turns to 9, it means there was no money for that particular project. Otherwise, if it was, you should be able to clear your bills in the successive year. But how you can accumulate 7 billion as your pending bills, even if there was no money exchequer then, it means there was a 6-point-something billion that you spent that you could not, you should not have spent.
Mr. Speaker, let me ask the nominee this question then. The pending bills, for example, for roads, is 700 billion shillings at the national level now. So does that mean that all that procurement was done without a budget?
The simple answer, Mheshimiwa, is as the Speaker says, the PMF Act stipulates how you spend government money.
Speaker,
Say, Daud, what is it? Can he respond to that first?
Yeah, it's regarding the pending bills he's speaking about. I want to ask him, because he was the governor of Kiambu, when he left, what amount of pending bill did he leave behind for his successor?
Mr. Speaker, that is an easier one. It was about 300 million, and these were projects running between my the second last year of the term, and we would have been able to pay those pending bills in the following year. But today I hear it stands to 6-point-something billion. I would not say why.
Can you respond quickly? We're running out of time. Go to Mule's question.
Mule.
Then Raso, then Sharia.
To protect Kenya's investors, business, and the Gen Z, sometimes government buries its head in the sand and pretends sometimes not to know exactly what is happening. Mr. Speaker, if I'm confirmed and I go to the minister, we should be able to bring these things to light and discuss openly on the problems that face the country. You also asked me why me and not a Gen Z. Mr. Speaker, this country has room for all of us. Gen Zs, millennials, and yourself and I, Mr. Speaker. So that
you didn't appoint yourself, so
no,
yes,
I'm
you don't have
saying,
to belabor that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for
go on and answer the question.
Your guidance.
Yes,
I think I have answered Mr. Mule's questions.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker, and I'm sorry to call for a point of order.
Who is that?
Myself.
Yes, Mule.
Maybe I can repeat my questions to the nominee, because he seems to have lost track of the question. My first question was, earlier you had alluded that you can have a discussion with Starlink. And Starlink, introduction of Starlink in this country will definitely kill Safaricom tomorrow.
Yes.
And therefore, the government will lose the revenue they have been collecting from Safaricom, and also the investment they have done on the fiber cable.
Right.
My question is, how will you protect foreign investors not to come and kill Kenyan's company on the expense of what they intend to do in the country, despite that there are satellite on the river? There is massive investment of fiber cable in this country. Question number two, we are talking about Vision 2030. The emphasis is that the development of knowledge-based economy, highlighting the emphasis of ICT integration in education to enhance productivity and efficiency within the country. How will you use the office, if approved, to make sure that ICT become a key pillar in education sector in this country, to make sure that we don't have this issue we are facing, whereby we cannot leverage on what comes out of the school and take advantage of the concert city as it was envisaged by the Vision 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Mule, the issue of Starlink that I referred to when I think I was answering Honorable Koichi's question was in as far as we don't have fiber optic and we don't have masts in places like, for lack of a better example, Garissa or one of those places. And masts of aerial masts of Starlink are available. And as we speak now, today, Kenyans are using Starlink. I am told by CA, the regulator, that they are in talks with Starlink on conditions that they've been given to work in Kenya. And I'm sure those conditions will surface in the matter that you raise. It's also important to understand that most of the investors in this field are also foreign, and they are private businesses. As a businessman, where I stand, we should be able to create a fair playing ground and competition for for businesses, because again, it will be unfair to protect some modern and innovative ideas from coming into society like Kenya, simply because we would want to protect. I'm sure the regulator should be able to find a balance where we do not lock out. I will tell you that from where I sit, I know that Starlink has given a lot of work in Nairobi in terms of connectivity until they do not have the frequency anymore. But Kenyans, as innovative as they are, they're able to go to Meru, buy a Starlink dish and activate it in Meru and bring it back to Nairobi. One is the speeds that Kenyans are talking about, because you will get speeds of up to 200 Mbps on a 2,800 fee, and that is what Kenyans want, value for money. So we should be able to strike a balance on those things. Education, part of it. I'm sure that if I am confirmed, we should be able to set out a curriculum that will be used in TVETs, used in the constituency hubs and in the ward hubs as training centers for Kenyans to acquire the necessary skill as one of the pillars in the master plan for ICT and digital economy, and then use the young innovators, the young Gen Zs and others to be able to start their own small hubs where every corner of the country a Gen Z will be involved in digital enterprise for their own good. So that's my take. There was a question from Shuria about the CA tax compliance. I'm not sure exactly what that was. If I can get yeah. I'm not sure exactly, Speaker, how.
He's left. Go to the next by
yes, there
Russell.
was a question by, I think, Mheshimiwa from SACCO. Problem of cyberbullying and attacks, especially the threat on the 20,000 services on e-citizen. Again, Mr. Speaker, this is the issue of control and regulations of what, so that we can create firewalls and things like that that stop interference and hacking of government services. And it has happened in the first world, and we should be able to do that ourselves here in Kenya. So we should be on the forefront in making sure that these services are free from interference from hackers, attackers, and bullies.
Rahab, you'll pass. Mishi.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. Honorable Chairman, much of the vital questions have already been asked, but I'll just ask a few of them. My first question is on the internet outage by service providers, which often disrupt businesses, education, and access to critical services, leading to significant consumer losses. If approved, what policies or regulations will you implement to ensure internet service provider compensate users for prolonged outages? Furthermore, how will your ministry enforce service level agreements to guarantee reliability and accountability from providers? My second question, our constitution envisage right to information, and as Parliamentary Service Commission, being one of the commissioners, we have a dream of ensuring that Kenyans can follow live proceeding in our parliament, both the houses, that both in the chamber and also in our committee meeting. We have tried, but we have limited resources. Do you think there is a room for collaboration between your ministry and Parliamentary Service Commission to ensure that we actualize this dream? And my last question is to appreciate and consider the recent completion of the Mombasa to Malaba fiber project aimed at enhancing connectivity My question will be, what specific programs are you going to put in place to ensure that the local communities can benefit, and in particular the youth within those counties where we have that project of Mombasa Malaba fiber project, to ensure at least we have like digital literacy and access on online opportunities? Thank you, Honorable Chairman.
Yes, nominee.
Thank you, Chair. On the issue of internet outage, again, this is a big problem in the country, and every time you call these providers, they have stories that they are not aware. So we probably may need to do some regulations that and ask every provider to be able to monitor outage. But it's tricky because you will find, Mr. Speaker, we have some providers who have capacity of 1 gig in a certain area, but they have acquired or given internet to double that capacity, meaning every other time half of the places will not be working. And this is something the regulator should be able to take up quickly and make sure that we have consistent, stable internet for business. But you will also see that most of the internet services are based on stable power. So if we have unstable Kenya power supply, you will find that sometimes there is outage because of lack of energy from Kenya Power. So it cuts across departments, but we should be able to bring these people together and see what we can do to reduce outage. One of the ways, Mr. Speaker, to do so, if it is a result of power, is to have green energy available, and solar is really not that expensive. A hub can get 4 panels that will keep the hub running for probably 70% of the time when the sun shines. But yes, it's a concern for many. It's also a concern that you will pass some places on mobile network is not working, 3G or 5G. So it's something that I should be able to take up with the regulator and see what it is that the department can do, even in terms of compensating people on the time that they have lost. But knowing businessmen in Kenya as we are, sometimes it's tricky when you start talking of compensations, but it is something that can be looked into. I don't know exactly why PSC or Parliament would not have stable internet when government owns 20% of the internet on the cable. So, Madam Misha, Honorable Misha, if I'm confirmed, I will bring a direct line of internet into the National Assembly. And that should be internet that is almost free. Because if you look at internet as a pipe of water, it is full of water flowing, and it doesn't stop flowing. So if it is not tapped, it means it goes to waste. Again, Mr. Speaker, policy-wise, it's important that we try and classify internet as not only essential, but a vital, essential, and desirable commodity. You will find that water is a utility, power is a utility. I would want to drive the ministry, if I'm confirmed, Mr. Speaker, to classify internet as a vital, essential, and desirable utility, so that the issues of way leave, etc., and the fees that are charged by counties become a thing of the past, so that we can move internet to the whole republic and people enjoy high-speed internet. You will find that even things like hotspots that were put by government, most of them are not working because they were put, internet connected, the switches were put, the extenders were put in place, but there was no sustainability plan. And in my first few days in office, if you confirm me, is to make sure that we have an arrangement with ISPs who have services there, and probably have cross-trade with what they pay in fees, and they man those public hotspots so that there is internet every corner of the Republic, as the President says. Every market should have internet, and that is my belief. I guess,
yes,
Mr.
Deputy Speaker.
Thank you. I just have a few questions for you, Honorable Kabogo, from the members of the public. One person has asked, how will you balance the need for regulation within the digital economy to ensure innovation and competition while protecting consumer rights and preventing monopolistic practices by major tech players? That's one question. The second one is, what plans do you have for scaling up digital literacy skills development in Kenya, particularly in our schools, universities, and local communities, to prepare them for the demands of the digital economy and workspace? And last, how will you address the issue of radio and TV stations, particular vernacular stations, promoting betting and gambling, which has increasingly affected all segments of society, including older generation? What measures will you implement to regulate such content and protect vulnerable populations and curb this negative social impact through caused by excessive gambling?
Good. Those are questions sent in by members of the public.
Thank you.
Let's take one more from Naisula.
This is a direct question. If approved for appointment, what 5 key deliverables can the youth of Kenya expect to see from your office in the short and medium term?
Mary Mase, you have a question from a member of the public?
Yes, from the member of the public. Is saying, digital services require public trust. How would the CS nominee maintain ethical standards in the use of technology, especially in projects that involve surveillance or data collection? And then the second one is, ICT projects have historically faced challenges related to corruption and mismanagement. What specific measures will the CS nominee implement to ensure transparency and accountability in ICT procurement processes?
Yes, the first one was on the balancing of digital economy regulations and monopoly. As I said earlier, Mheshimiwa Deputy Speaker, we have to balance and create regulations that look on both sides of the device, but bringing all stakeholders together and discussing these issues sometimes is the easier route, so that people understand the parameters. Again, we may have laws, but they are not followed. I'm sure even in bullying, CA has come up with an app that helps you report these things, but not many people know about it. So engagement with public and stakeholders would help us come up with regulations on how to control that monopoly. Plans on how to scale digital skills. We have said we develop curriculums on TVETs in secondary schools and all these things, which we will work together with the Ministry of Education to make sure that this very vital tool is available to Kenyans through secondary TVET and even primary schools. And as it is the plan to connect all institutions of learning with high-speed internet, which is again available on the fiber optic cable. That will enhance learning. We can also involve the young that are educated, very many of them in the streets, as ICT ambassadors in constituencies who may be employed by the ministry to run these programs even online, so that it's not confined only to institutions. And that is my thinking. Betting, Mr. Speaker, it is a very serious problem. Where you find without risking naming radio stations, you will find a young man holds a knife to the mother in the morning and asks for 100 shillings. And if you don't give, nitakuduka. And this is betting. I am sure there must be a way of controlling betting in Kenya. It is a big problem. One may not understand because it looks like 100 shillings in betting, which is neither here nor there. But if you listen to what this radio stations say, they have 1 million people early morning putting 100 shillings and hoping to earn 100,000 shillings. If my mathematics are right, Mr. Speaker, that is 100 million shillings in that first hour of the day on one radio station. And what is paid back in total is about 10 million shillings. So we have people making Kenyans poorer every day, and Kenyans have hope in making 10,000. But they don't understand that 100 million shillings has been collected. So this is a thing that cuts across security, ICT, and the freedom of radio broadcasting, etc., that the government needs to come together and stop. We have governments out there that have stopped gambling completely, at the risk of getting in trouble with these cartels because they are there. We need to do something, and urgently so, to control.
What will you do? You know,
I will call the ministry in charge of security, and this is a security concern. I should be able to move even in cabinet and say, do we think we need to deal with gambling? Because in my view, this is what is happening. It requires a concerted effort of government, Mr. Speaker, my belief. Single-handedly, I will not be able to handle. We have to do this together. Again, talk to members of the public. They have never understood this as a business that helps certain people and not them. They believe that they have a chance of putting in 100 and coming out with 10 million shillings or 10,000 shillings. Also, we could use an approach, Mr. Speaker, where people use token of 100 shillings to buy into government programs like Konza, so that every Kenyan who puts 100 shillings in a month or so, it has 8% in terms of ownership of 8 shillings from 100, sorry, to 150 over 2 or 3 months, so that instead of getting 10,000 from gambling, you're getting 10% of your investment at the end of the month. And this is happening the world over in terms of tokenization. People invest in shares. So if we can encourage Kenyans to invest in shares of places like Konza City, you will find that they are putting the gambling money into useful savings in the future. But this is also a culture that, Mr. Speaker, has really grown in Kenya. The gambling culture is a menace, just to say the least. Honorable, I should ask for deliverables for the youth. We are saying we want to involve them to come to these cyber cafes, learn, and engage them to take loans of government. I will be proposing a loan fund for the young, the youth, and everyone, ICT loan fund for startups, where we will lend them LPOs to buy computers, to buy routers, and to have rent to pay. This will move the 1450 burden of building a class in a ward, as opposed to building. They will get rentals, get skills from government, a planned curriculum skill for them, and then we will win them out to be on their own and make money on their own, because the digital platform right now, I'm told, is contributing about 10% of our GDP. It should be moving to 50%, because that's where the world is. Again, if we can deal with the exploitations that the Honorable Ichongwa talked about, where people find digital jobs can be done, HBOs in Kenya, very cheaply. If we regulate that and make them get a good share of their contents, you will see content creators right now are crying that music played on radios, etc., that money never gets to them. We should be able to quickly deal with that so that they get a good share of the YouTube runs that their content transparency. Mr. Speaker, in my mind, where I sit, corruption is a problem again, a problem talked about all over. But if the dealings of government are in the open, for example, there is a portal of the Ministry of ICT and the stuff that the ministry is doing, the engagement with public will put fear in people who plan to do certain things, Mr. Speaker, corrupt dealings. Information is power in the hands of the public, and creating discussions openly. But you will find, again, corruption, Mr. Speaker, doesn't happen on the payment. It happens from inception. So if these things are brought to the open, it will minimize corruption in public affairs. So as a ministry, if I'm confirmed, I should be able to say, I will make sure in the next 6 months, if I'm confirmed, Mr. Speaker, that the Ministry of ICT and Digital Economy is completely digital, and hoping that other ministries, because we now have officers, I'm told, Ministry of ICT directors in every ministry, we should be able to get Kenya government services digital completely. There's a lot of talk out there of e-citizen not working. I've been a victim myself, Mr. Speaker, trying to pay discharge fees for land. And it's important for us sometimes to tell the public what is happening to these platforms. And what I understand, and which we should be able to deal with, Mr. Speaker, is that the front end, which is the application to pay, is automated, such that you can do that in 15 or 5 minutes, so to speak. But when the application for discharge goes to lands, there are files that they have to go through manually to be able to generate an invoice for you. So we've done half the automation. So we should be able to tell Kenyans how progressively we are doing in terms of automating end to end. And I'm sure that can be sectionalized in every ministry that is giving government services. But getting 20,000 services today is not a simple thing. So I'm thinking if we all buy into the idea of making Kenya a digital country in terms of government services, it will be easy for everyone. Even for members of parliament, where they want to know exactly what is happening in every ministry, and those portals are available for read only. You should be able to know from the ministry, even as opposed to you asking a question from a minister, you should be able to know exactly what is happening in the Ministry of Sports in terms of their development programs. So, Mr. Speaker, it's a journey that is worth taking, and we are equal to the task as government service providers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Probably just correct, Standard Media have put out that he said 1912 is when he started using computers. I just want him to clarify on record so that Standard Media doesn't play around with it.
He was born 1912.
Yeah, I know. He's only 60. He was born in 1961, but Standard Media have said he started using computers in 1912. That's what they have reported. So we need to He just needs to just say it.
Mr. Speaker, I had said earlier that I had issues with the Standard and I took them to court and made a little bit of money. So surely, I was not around 1912. But if they don't withdraw, I shall do what is necessary, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Or simply tell the country when you started using computers.
Yes, I had said here, and it's on record, Mr. Speaker, that it was 1992.
Yes.
And I remember it very well.
That's
because
what
that time Somalia had just gotten into problems.
Where did the Standard pick 1912?
So probably he had 12 instead of 92.
We just encourage let's not escalate it. We encourage you, gentlemen of the media, be as accurate as you can in reporting what is going on here. Because Kabogo didn't say 1912, and if he did, I would have stopped him. Because that would have been a crude misinformation. Honorable Kabogo, there's one more Kenyan called Muhuyo, who says, ask the nominee how he will ensure free, fair and precise election by ensuring counting and release of result is fast and accurate, like in the US, where results for over 200 million voters is released in less than 48 hours, whereas here we just have a less than 1/8 of the same. He's also, of course, not factually correct, because we know the case of Florida in the US. Yes. But you can answer.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. That is a very genuine and good question.
Yes.
But the ministry that probably, if you confirm me, will have very little on the issue of elections, because there is a body. But as a Kenyan, Mr. Speaker, I would want a situation where I walk into a ballot room where elections are being held. I am identified digitally, I vote digitally, and my vote is counted that minute. That is a dream that every other politician who has suffered things like I have suffered on issues of elections, it will be a thing of the past, but it's a dream for many countries.
Before I come to the final issues, Honorable Kabogo, as a Kenyan, and if you are confirmed, you've been repeatedly asked here about cyberbullying, pornography, and dirty material on the net that's accessed by our children. We were in Australia in October, and the Prime Minister of Australia was moving a bill, the Prime Minister himself, to curtail access to social media by under 16s because of these kind of reasons. I'm not saying you need that kind of drastic action, but from where you sit, what ideas do you have in protecting children under 16s from access to filth material that is all over?
Mr. Speaker,
I meet many parents who cry and say, look, I walked into my son's room and I didn't believe what I saw. How old was your son? 7. I walked into my daughter's room, I didn't believe what I saw. How old is your daughter? 10.
Mr. Speaker.
And remember, the state has a duty to protect and guarantee and guard the morals of our children.
Mr. Speaker, as a parent, from where I sit, I don't think what you saw in Australia, if we did that here, would be a drastic move. It may be the first step towards curtailing such dirty players on the internet. The other thing is create very strict regulations for people like Facebook or TikTok, because they are on platforms, so that Kenya has a negotiation and an agreement with those platforms that they cannot do this, because even doing the law, as Australia is planning to do, enforcement, Mr. Speaker, is one challenge. But I would prefer to recommend to Cabinet that such a law be put in place ASAP, because what is out there is really shocking. And we cannot deal with the morals and teach children morals if this is what they see on internet. It gets to a point as a parent, you wish that there was no internet. You wish there was no social media because of the exposure of these things in the minds of children. So it's a bad problem. It's worse than gambling. It is really bad. And as Minister, if I'm confirmed, Mr. Speaker, I know there's a lot of money that these companies spend to stay afloat. But as a country, if we take a stand that this cannot happen in Kenya, and a drastic move is taken to ban one of them, then the rest will toe the line. If you see the debate on TikTok and between America and China, you will see that money is really moving, but something positive is about to happen. So as a Kenyan, a parent, and probably as a minister, is something that is really concerning about what is available there. You cannot even face your children in your own living room because of the material that has come to their heads. And you will see a family that has a boy and a girl of probably that age of 7 and 8. Your guess is as good as mine, Mr. Speaker, what you would see them do. And it is killing for a parent to be able to deal with such a thing.
Thank you, nominee. I will now ask you a few other questions. You told us how hardworking you are and how much money you have made. What is your net worth in terms of assets, houses, land, cash, and bank?
Residential houses, Mr. Speaker, my total net worth is about 700 million. Movable assets of about 40 million, Mr. Speaker. Land and farm, about 756 million, Mr. Speaker. Cash and current assets of about 64 million, Mr. Speaker. Beg your pardon. And interest and shares in companies, approximately 1.5 billion. So a total of about 3.01 billion, Mr. Speaker. Yes. Conservatively, Mr. Speaker.
Conservatively, you are worth over 3 billion. That's what you said, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Have you ever been convicted? Yes, Junet.
Mr. Speaker, when I listened to the presentation on the issue of net worth, the nominee said he has a movable asset. I suspect that should be vehicles and such things.
Yes,
for
Mr.
40
Speaker.
million shillings.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Only?
Conservatively, yes, sir.
Yeah, I saw another vehicle that looks very ugly. I thought that alone is 40 million. The one that looks like something else on the road. You remember?
Mr. Speaker, vehicles get devalued almost up to zero, accounting-wise. And you know the prudent rule in accounting, you anticipate both losses and profits. So, yes, it could be about 40 million.
Yes, Murugara?
It is said he also owns a chopper, and I don't see it anywhere here. A chopper. He actually it's a movable. No.
Mr. Speaker, it is true. I had one at some point when I was a young man.
What happened to it?
And I could fly it myself. I'm a pilot myself, Mr. Speaker. So when I couldn't fly as much, I decided to let it go.
You sold it?
Yes, I sold it.
So it's part of the 3.06 billion.
Yes, it's part.
Have you ever been convicted of an offense in a court of law?
No, sir, I have never been convicted.
Have you ever been adversely mentioned in any parliamentary committee report, apart from the cited documents?
No, I have never been mentioned, Mr. Speaker.
Do you hold an office in a political party?
No, I don't, Mr. Speaker.
I
resigned from Tujibebe when I was nominated by the president.
You nominated a caretaker?
Not as yet. The party is going through the process.
Have you ever been dismissed or removed from an office?
No, sir.
On account of contravention of Article 75 of the Constitution?
No, sir, I have never been.
Okay. Have you ever been adversely associated with practices that depict bias, favoritism, tribalism, nepotism in the discharge of your duties?
No, sir, but a couple of years ago, I was taken to court on hate speech, but I was acquitted of the charges. That's like nine years ago that I had said something in a Thika stadium that was not pleasant for political opponents, but I was taken to court and I was acquitted.
Was it tribalistic or nepotistic?
No, it was not tribalistic. It was just political statements.
Right. Thank you. We now come to an end with you. Make sure you collect your documents that have been cross-checked with what we have and found to be in order. There was a bit of memoranda on you. We've seen your responses and they are reasonably satisfactory. So unless you are lawfully held,
thank you so much.
You are discharged to
thank
go
you so
back
much,
to your
Mr. Speaker,
businesses.
And, members of the National Assembly. Asanteni sana.
Thank you, Honorable Kabogo. Members, we'll have a 10-minute break to allow the clerk and his team to prepare for the next nominee. Yeah. So we resume at 5:50, 10 to 6.
Thank you.